All right. Guys, we made it. I got five people on the same show at the same time, which is usually much more of a struggle. This time was pretty easy, actually. But yeah, welcome to episode 105. There's 2 weekends left till the CSM elections, so I thought would probably be a good opportunity to at least get a couple guys on here that might not be known by everyone because they're not on the CSM yet. And yeah, talk to them about their campaigns and their plans if they get elected. And so I chose some candidates that I think would do well. There's a couple. I mean, we have a big set of candidates this year. I think 50. Obviously, not every candidate is very committed. There's some less committed people, but I think I picked a couple guys that I think that would do really well on the CSM, and also have a solid chance of getting elected, right? So let me introduce to you guys everyone just super short, so you get a bit of an idea at least who they are. Obviously, Shines has been on a couple times. One of my best friends, have been playing alongside him for years. Same alliance, we've been FCing together basically. We have different takes on the game a little bit, right? Different playstyles still, even though we shared so much time and EVE together. But yeah, he's way more alliance focused. He's the leader of Init for like now, I guess, 4 years, right? 3-4 years. I mean, we've been leading Init together as a group before that. So like, yeah, for a long time, all right? And yeah. Thanks for coming on, Shiny Boy.
Thanks for having me. It's cool to be on with everybody here.
And my second guest. It's a very unique candidate, I think, in terms of skill set and expertise. I think no doubt is probably the best candidate when it comes to financial and market related stuff. At least from who is running currently. Even though from everyone in EVE I wouldn't know if there's someone better, but maybe the usual market and financial guy is probably not outspoken like he is. He's also one of those weirdos that stream on Twitch, you know. So if you want to check him out, Twitch handle is os_. All right. Thanks for coming on.
That's right. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. And I love the non-FC profile you helped me create here. Very
every
great.
now and then we have to do a unique one, you know.
It was difficult. Yeah. Panda was like, put in, small scale, large scale. I was like, nope. Yeah. Where's the no scale?
I usually have to clarify because people pointed finger at me in the past, like saying like, oh, you only give so many points to this guy. Like, what the fuck? I'm like, dude, I'm not making these. I'm like, yes, I make the pictures, but like they decide where the points go, right? And yeah, makes sense to have unique categories for a unique kind of candidate too, I think.
All I wanted in EVE was be on the FC chat, so thanks for making this happen.
God, stop it, dude. So next candidate, before anyone wonders, Dujek. He doesn't play the PvP side of things necessarily on that character. He has a different character to do that. Because like, I mean, last year we had the outcry about Casimir. Remember that one? Casimir only has one frag or some shit. So I just thought maybe I want to clarify that. It's not his PvP main char, right?
Yeah.
As an FC, he's more of a specialist. And this year, I'm not sure if you did it before, but this year you were the AT captain for Brave too.
I've been the general tournament captain for Brave for 3 years now, so it's been a while.
Yeah, I figured probably, yeah. And he's also the first of the introductions here of a few theory crafting enjoyers here. I think that's fair to say. We have some real theory crafting expertise on today, actually, thinking about it.
Are you really playing the game if you don't have 10 bits up at the same time in Python.
Yeah, I agree. You haven't played Eve yet. If you haven't, if you haven't been at like, oh shit, I can't see my Python fitting names anymore. Like, I don't know. It's just like faction symbols at this point.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Then, as part of Hydra, or under the name Truth or Light, he has won the AT before, I think twice in a row. But is also known for his videos. He uploads them to YouTube. I think you haven't done any videos lately, right? People are missing them a little bit. Maybe we can talk about that later. Talk you into making some more. One of the best small-scale pilots in the game, probably. I think that's fair to say. Always a pleasure to talk to. Yeah, welcome to the show, Amelia.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, been a bit busy with AT, but now it's over, so excited to get back and do some Tranquility stuff.
All right, good to hear. I also saw you guys created a new corp or new alliance even. I don't even know, dude. You guys are so confusing. Every time, like,
We keep you guessing.
Yeah, dude. Everyone has to study the alliance and corp names every time. And then for my fifth guest today, he has been outspoken quite a bit over the years, has run for CSM a couple times too, known as one of the best theory crafters in the game. And even though he wasn't on a CSM yet, he had some impact on the game, I believe. One good example for that is the Munin missile change. I think that is that can be attributed to Stitch's influence. Yeah, came close to being elected a couple times, and I think now with the 2 extra slots, I think you have a really solid chance, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to assume, but there's, like you said, it's a solid chance.
Yeah, what do you guys think? So the 2 extra slots, do you think, like, in general, is it a good thing? Should it have been done differently, or like, what's your take? Maybe Stitch, you want to start with that one?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I think it's, as far as the initial change of the CSM, I think it's probably the best option to go, just because it kind of, maybe it won't work this year, maybe it needs to change the next time if there's an issue that pops out of it. But I think as an immediate change of the CSM, I think it's probably the most fair. Some people are saying, well, CCP picks people, they're going to get a lot of flack from the general EVE population because they weren't necessarily voted. But like, honestly, who really cares? Like, as long as you're in there providing good input and CCP finds it valuable, then that's fine. And as someone that's kind of been in the general EVE public spotlight, like, I'm used to getting flack at random. Not everyone agrees with my opinions, and that's fine. Like, you're not going to please everyone. So I think as far as the extra slot or the extra 2 slots goes, and those picks being based off of what CCP wants, I think it's good because, one, they can find out, is this person aligning with what they're going after for that year? And then 2, it just adds a little bit more diversity to the CSM to get better and different perspectives.
Yeah.
The selection criteria are quite narrow, so they won't be without mandate, given that they have to receive quite a significant amount of votes to be eligible anyway.
They have to be in the top 20, right?
Yeah, so there are only 10 people that CCP can choose between.
Yeah.
There are going to be 8 people who are unhappy about it, maybe.
No, there's going to be 1 or 2 people that are going to be especially unhappy about it. Because think about it. Imagine, Stitch, you get so close, right? Again. And then you're number 11. But then CCP picks 2 other people. You know what I mean? Maybe number 20. And it's just like, man, it doesn't, I don't think it's going to feel all too good then. No, I think, in those 10 guys, like, I'd be surprised if they wouldn't pick you, or, like, for example, I'm going to ask you guys in a second, but, like, I think Oz has a really good chance to be that guy if he doesn't get elected anyway. I think,
So I
mean-
think if I may, I think it's a great thing that that CCP is doing here. And yes, of course, I might be a little bit biased because it's probably my best ticket in not being associated with any larger alliance. However, I also think it's great because if you do want diversity on the CSM, there's always been a slight overrepresentation of null, just because you guys are the best organized and have you're used to running large organizations. It's very much in line. It's how you play the game, and you have a lot of players, and no question, you should have the most people on there, and most alliance leaders and null. I said this yesterday on my stream as well. Are they have to be experts, and they're so deeply ingrained in the game that most of them deserve to be on the CSM, no question. But I think to get those extra subject matter experts in there, to get, from a CCP perspective, to look at the CSM from the top and say, you know what, last year we were missing a little bit of this, or we might have been missing a little bit of that, and we might have doubled up on some things because we had two large alliance leaders in there that really had very similar points of view. I think it's a great thing, but I agree. I might be a little bit biased.
You know what is actually weird? What I can tell you guys is what we were missing on last year's CSM was actually a proper alliance leader, super large scale FC, because we didn't have any, if you think about it, right? Now, I was there and I have experience with it, but I'm not currently in the meta of that. I've been away a little bit. So at times we were actually missing exactly that, which is weird, right? I think that was the first CSM that was the case, actually. And
like a proper Munin enjoyer.
Yeah, or
Wow.
like a proper capital enjoyer like Shiny Boy, right? What do you think,
Well-
Shines? What's your take?
Well, first of all, we don't all only fly Munins. Most of us hate it. It's just the right tool to get the job done, or it was back then. But I think CCP need to be very careful that if they are going to select two, even from a small pool, they're going to have to justify why they've picked those two people. Because there are going to be 8 people who are not getting picked with the 2 people who are getting picked. So I do think they're going to have to be very careful about justifying why these 2 were picked, basically.
I mean, I guess the way I look at it is previously on the CSM, if you had 10 spots and you were number 11, you would have lost anyway. So even if number 11 doesn't get picked and we were using the original formula for the CSM, you still would have lost this time. So when people are like, well, if number 11 doesn't get picked, they're going to be, upset about it. But again, it doesn't matter, because whether it's this formula or the different formula for CSM, you would have lost either way. So in my opinion, it's not a big deal if number 11 doesn't get picked, or, number 20 gets picked instead, or whatever. I just think it's a way for CCP to diversify a little bit more.
What you're basically saying is all EVE players should have a positive mindset and think of the good things first. Right?
Is that even possible for EVE players?
Exactly. That's my point, right? People are gonna be upset. No, right? I think that's pretty clear. The thing we actually pushed for, I think it's out there in the CSM meeting minutes or whatever. There was a long discussion of what could be done and stuff. I can't talk about all these things, but what I pushed for in other CSM candidates is like just expanding those 2 slots. Like, just give us 2 more slots, because if you think about it, like usually number 11 and number 12 are pretty diverse candidates. Usually those are not the big alliance leader. That's not the goon number 1 or goon number 2 or like Red or Horde candidates that I have 11 or 12. Those are good candidates to diversify the playstyles anyway. So you didn't have to handpick them, in my opinion, but obviously it gives them a little bit more control, right? Obviously, I think we can all agree it's a positive thing, right?
I still think what I'd like to see them go like a little bit of a different approach back to what they did before, where they had more specific kind of councils depending on what change you're looking at, right? So if we're looking at specifically an industry change, getting a group of players together that all know about industry to go look at this thing or something like that, which is a bit different from CSM, I understand, because it's much more focused. But I think that's could be a lot more useful when you're going for like these bigger changes. Like I remember they did that for like the T3D changes with Swipple and stuff like that.
They
They
for
recently
caps,
did it for the Poachman roundtable as well.
and that worked really well. Watchman got some changes done that really resulted in some good stuff. Right? Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, I was just basically getting to that point where it's like I think CSM serves a purpose and it's definitely has some benefits, but I think there's also some issues that they still could work on about trying to get more. If they're trying to look at more focused changes, they can try and go to that a little bit more.
It's also something I told them before too, that like, dudes, we have Björn, we have Swift, we have all kinds of people that know the community. They know all the people. You know where their knowledge is. But then you limit yourself on these 10 guys, right? Like if I know Oz has the answers to my questions, like why not take that free, like approach him, you know? Maybe make him sign an NDA, sure, right? If you want to really like, you know. But like why limit
I would
yourself
too.
anyway, right?
Yeah, that's like the
I
point
mean,
of the CSM
yeah.
too, is like having the community so that you actually know these people, so that you can reach out for CSM in a way too. If CSM can't, right? Like if there has this change and you don't know that much about it, you should still, as a CSM candidate, know people that you can go talk to about it, so that you can become well read on it and understand the issues about it.
There have been focus groups though that weren't a super successful thing too. So you have to be careful what the focus group does, right? For example, the capital changes like a long time ago. That was a focus group too. They invited a bunch of people, and it really seemed like the two political sides, or maybe if you want to say it's three or whatever, but you know, one side kind of took over the Discord and kind of silenced the rest a little bit, right? And then guess what? If you put a group of people into one channel that love flying capitals to redesign capitals, what's going to be the result, right? It's going to be really strong capitals, right? So I think we had to suffer under that for a bit. It wasn't too bad, right? Like I think we're in a decent place now. Besides, maybe you could talk about the price tag. You know, that's maybe Oz could talk about that, I guess. But other than that, I think we're in a decent place now. So, you know, it wasn't the end of the world. And maybe it was the lesson they needed to learn. Focus groups, you know, are still pretty good. Who knows? So, talking about those 2 extra slots, what do you think? Like, there's a couple candidates that I think we already pointed out, Stitch and Oz. Amelia is probably one of them, right? Not being affiliated to big blocks, you know, that have a good chance of being picked. Who do you think? Who else? Maybe even someone who's not here yet has a good chance, and why? Or what was missing on the last CSM?
I mean, I would say probably one of them is going to be, or at least one alternative would be maybe Drake as a dedicated Potchman candidate, just because he's worked with CCP a little bit in the past, that was mentioned in the focus group, and there's not really anyone that represents Potchman.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely going to be someone that's not in a big alliance. Like, I mean, Torvald's been on before. I don't know if he did a good job or not. I don't know if somebody here was on the CSM with him, but he's running again, so he might be a pick. Although they just revamped faction warfare, so you would think maybe that's not him, or somebody like Mike Azariah, who is just an overall new player friendly focused person.
That reminds me of another thing. Like, what if you were on the CSM before? Like, let's say I get enough votes and I'm number 11 and I don't get picked. What does that say? Is that saying CCP is like, the Panda guy, we didn't really, value his input,
I think they would. I think they would seriously consider picking you if they thought like you added a unique point of view this year. I mean, and they would be in a good position to judge that, right? I think especially with someone like you, I think there would still be a chance that they'd pick you. Personally.
I think the 11th pick null candidate is probably worse off than any wormhole, Poachman, high sec, like any other space, really.
Yeah, I
Unless
guess.
they're bringing something really big to the table. I could see, like, I don't know, Angry Mustache as an example, being like more like graphs and industry person, something that they would like to have. I think Dutch Gunner might be interesting. He does like events and high-sec stuff in the Arataka Research Consortium.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to what CCP wants, right? So what do you think CCP is looking for in those characters, those candidates?
They might know what they are going to release next. Like last year, they would have picked a faction warfare candidate for sure.
Yeah.
Had the system been in place, that is.
Yeah, I mean, they're still working on faction warfare stuff, so I guess they would, really pick one again that has experience.
Also, where they think they have the biggest issues. Go ahead.
I mean, it just really depends on how much time they're going to dedicate to it, and especially with like this recent event with the potential Jove gates and all that stuff. Like, where's that going to lead? Because that feels like that's going to be a primary focus over, say, faction warfare. Not to say nothing will change with faction warfare, but is it really something that you need a dedicated person for?
Yeah. Is there anything else about like the CSM or CSM elections that you think maybe would be nice to change, or that could be better?
I mean, they have already made one change, so I think from my perspective, we'll just see how it plays out, and then we can decide what needs to change next year, or if anything needs to change.
Yeah, I guess that sounds very logical.
I'm really bummed that they're not going to do the live show. I thought that those live shows of counting the votes and having it drawn out into 2 years.
They said they won't?
No, they said that they're not going to do that drawn out thing because they're going to announce it at FanFest, right? So they're not going to do the 2-hour thing on stage. It's going to be an abbreviated version, and then they're going to upload the details later. And that, I think that's a bummer, because every year
was very exciting last year.
It was so exciting, right? It was like the best Eve show there was.
Yeah, I still regret that I didn't do a live show at the time, like that I didn't go live and then just streamed it myself. But I had my girlfriend here at the time, and I was like, yeah, we only had limited time, so.
Popcorn, make it a date.
So they're not. Nobody's gonna know if they get in until FanFest, is it?
Yeah, we're gonna be sitting there both.
That's gonna suck for some people, especially if you're after going to FanFest, right?
I mean, dude, if any of us don't get elected, I mean, I think we're all gonna be just fine, right? But it would be nice, of course, to sit there at FanFest, and then us all getting elected. That would be pretty cool.
They made it so that there is enough to do in the CSM, but there's always a silver lining if you don't get in. Like, you have many hours to go do stuff every week.
Yeah, and I mean, technically also, if you don't get elected, like I said, like Stitch, for example, over the years, he had some good influence. And, I'm sure, like, CCP guys have convoed him before and asked, like, hey, like, can you explain this? Do this? Like, it happens all the time, right? They might not give any information out for him to have a better understanding of what they want, but at least in that way they can get some information. And it always depends on the dev too. So yeah, even if we don't get elected, you can still have influence, but yeah.
It'll definitely add another layer to FanFest.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I do agree. The show, yeah, that would be nice to have that counting again and stuff. They should totally do that, but you can't have it all, guys, right?
Maybe we can pressure them into doing an extended one, but they're finalizing the show right now, so
yeah, maybe I have to talk to some people, see how much influence the CSM actually has. And then so we talked about like the direction they might know where they're going, so they handpick there. So what do you think about the current, like, let's say the last year, maybe last year and a half, of the direction of CCP? Like, healthy, not healthy, good but not good enough?
I mean, I think the last 2 patches of Uprising Viridian were a breath of fresh air from CCP, because not only did they address some ecosystem things like faction warfare, they gave us new ships, which generally everyone's happy about that. But on top of that, they also rebalanced existing ships, which is really important to help keep the meta moving and changing and prevent things from stagnating. Because for the most part, outside of certain doctrines, people don't want to just fly the same thing every single day and fight the same thing every single day. So keeping things moving and shifting is always good for the health of the game. Obviously, it depends on the cadence. Obviously, we don't want to change things every month, but every 6 months to a year feels pretty healthy.
That's what I always say too. Like, give us a bigger rebalance once a year, and then things that have to be changed in the middle, sure, do it, right? But like, don't change it up on me every week. Like, my brain is gonna explode. Or what do the other theory crafters? Amelia, what do you think? Like, what's a good cadence for like balance changes?
I would do it based upon like how used the ship is realistically. I think it's a good metric for like if the ship needs to be buffed or if it's overused, if it needs to be nerfed. Like take for example Vargers or Marauders, like they were very oppressive for about 2-3 years, and I think they did some changes finally to nerf those down a little bit. But that's the kind of thing that I would use to look at what needs to be changed. I think the changes they did there were good. They hit how they perform in like a larger scale thing with the Bastion nerf, so you can't really Bastion aggressively. I know a lot of larger groups didn't really use that anyway, so it didn't really hit it too much. But in kind of mid-scale Pochvan type stuff, it was really oppressive when you have these like 600k EHP bricks that just get to Bastion and do 3,000 damage still. You're basically a dread at that point.
I mean, large scale, it was more and more becoming a thing too, right? The big paladin fleets.
Yeah, I just don't think many people actually Bastioned with them in the large scale. I might be wrong though.
Yeah, they did. Like Horde and those guys definitely went into Bastion. The problem that they came across was when they hit, like when Tie-Dye peaked, Bastion wouldn't turn off. So
Oh, really?
they couldn't coast out of Bastion. That's essentially why you don't see Paladin fleets anymore. At least
And
not
also,
on big fights.
And they become very slow. Like they go 650 meters per second now.
Also in wormholes is kind of a similar issue where you'd have up to 1 million EHP paladins, in certain wormhole systems that, then had fax support, and they would Bastion and then cycle out of Bastion and get fax reps and then Bastion back in again. And then their lower mass is allowing them to kind of just pile into wormholes, hence, the mass changes, although I don't necessarily agree with the speed nerfs to them because of that mass change, but I think that might have just been an oversight.
Yeah. Overall, you think healthy direction? Would everyone here agree? I guess, huh?
I think it's in the right direction, but I think they can still do it a lot more faster. Like I still think that like they should be better about if they're seeing an issue about changing it quickly. Whether that be like the Marauders or the stuff that they had with Munins for years. Like I think you could be a lot more rapid in the response from the community. I don't like how they take so long to be able to identify a problem and try and fix it. I think they can be a lot more rapid about that.
What do you mean by a lot more rapid? Like, what do you like? Give me like a bigger rebalance, like a rebalance, like the hack thing, or like the Marauder stuff, like once a year, every
like
2 years, or what is it?
Well, I think it's on like a per case basis, right? Like we're seeing that the Marauders are being completely oppressive and, they're clearly being a little bit overpowered. You can be trying to change that pretty much immediately. If, let's say you buff them and you're seeing that within the next 2 to 3 months, you could be doing a balance change right there in 2 to 3 months afterwards. I don't think you need to wait a full year, 2 years for you to say, hey, this is a problem, right? And it doesn't have to be a big change. You can do kind of small incremental changes to try and knock it down. And I think that's a much better way to get to kind of a targeted position that's much more balanced in the entire ecosystem.
And before I get to you, Oz, but wouldn't you say if you have something, let's say they change the Marauders, right? And they're super strong, everyone kind of wants Marauders. If you change them too quick, that's kind of a slap in the face of people too, right? Like, so you don't want to then fix that right away. Wouldn't you say like if something is too strong for a year in EVE terms, that's not too long of a time, right? And then market-wise, that Oz probably wanted to jump in there, saying like, that might not be healthy either, right?
It's not, but I mean, to your original question of like, I think the direction is probably like half and half, but I think it's leaning a little bit more to the negative. I think the expansions were generally well received, especially faction warfare expansion stabilized player numbers. I think they were dropping like crazy up until like October of last year. That got stabilized quite a bit. But I think last year and a half, that's also the subscription price increase. Let's not forget that. That was an insane move. Like if you look at the industry overall, and in a time when you had dropping player numbers, and that was just a Hail Mary move to basically save revenues, and them having walked that back since with massive sales that have seriously destabilized the economy in many occasions. I mean, you're thinking massive Omega sales, massive skill extractor sales. That's throwing a wrench into the economy every 3 to 4 weeks, and it's making it very difficult for people to deal with, inflation, deflation, rising prices. It's very difficult to plan with the current economy, and so I'm thinking, yes, stabilize player numbers, but also the way where we're at right now. Even the let's not forget the blockchain thing they wanted to implement, but then pulled back. Also, another thing where I said, well, there's a lot of things that have happened in the last year and a half that are also, a bit tone deaf. And yes, right, I want to be the CCP pick for the last 2 slots, but I'm never going to shut up about these things. Like, I'm going to call it as it is, right? And I have so before towards the other. And I know, some CCP devs are for it, some are against it for various of these things. But I think in terms of especially these reckless sales, that's one of the things that I would address on the CSM, because I think it's something where the business side of CCP is clearly not talking to the game development side, and they're, for some reason they're not listening, and that I think that needs to change for this game to have a serious future, and so that's one thing that I would certainly address. And sorry to have derailed your discussion a little bit, but I think it's important to say that.
Totally
I think it would matter a little bit less if Marauders were buffed, if there was like a steady stream of like knocking down the tallest pegs and buffing the ships that nobody has seen undocked other than like on a meme fleet around Christmas for the past 3 years. We have a lot of bad ships, and if we focused on like overall balance more than like the most splashy balance, like the Marauders suddenly getting like a double DPS and halved Bastion cycle when they got buffed, I see that people would also consider them a big deal if that was a 50% buff. Like these are really big changes to the game all at once, instead of like working on continuously updating the ships, because we don't see a lot of patch notes with crunchy number changes in the power area. It's more like industry and mechanics that we've seen in the past few years.
And then they leave those changes completely like that for a while, is what the point I was trying to make. So I agree with you completely there, Dujek.
Yeah.
As far as like Marauders and in general strong quote unquote OP ships, I think OP ships are good for the game for a limited time. Roughly year and a half is probably fine, because what it does is it gets people thinking of counters. And in some cases, that can lead to previously unused ships becoming useful again. And you're like, all right, well, this wasn't really useful for the past few years because the meta was X ship, but now this new ship is completely different, and now this old ship works a lot better. After about a year and a half, most of the player base has figured out, either they've found a good, reliable counter, or they're like, this is OP, it needs to be tweaked. Now, a tweak doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be, taken straight to the nuclear option, but it could be just adjusting fitting, adjusting speed, adjusting bonuses, etc. We don't have to completely gut something, which is, I think, a lot of everyone's concern. Anytime anyone talked about Marauder changes, is they were thinking, oh, you're just going to take it back to the original numbers. no, there's a lot of space in between the original numbers and the numbers that CCP put them in, when they were originally buffed.
I think that's a really important point because like getting stuff iterated on faster and more frequently is good, as long as it's not tipping from one end of the scale to the other like every 6 months. So something suddenly OP and then it's absolute dirt, and then it's OP again and then it's absolute dirt. You want to try and find a middle ground with these things.
Yeah, that's basically why I kept saying, right? The cadence of like a bigger change once a year, and then the tiny adjustments in between. I think that's probably a good middle ground.
Right. Like a really good example of that right now is like, not to bring it up again, but Marauders. Like right now, we still have issues with like the triple XL ASB, super cheap Vargur. Like originally, or when they made the changes to Marauders and Viridian, they really should have nerfed the Vargur CPU because it got an extra low slot.
I did suggest
so,
that actually.
if you have an extra low slot, you can put it in a co-pro for a standard shield fit, for like a Dead Space shield booster. But then still you'd have lower CPU than you need for a triple XL ASB fit without completely gimping it or going full faction fit to get the CPU to make it work. And then at least then it's actually worth killing.
Yeah.
A lower drop amount didn't make a big difference.
What was that?
It reps less now than it did. Like they did nerf the rep power of it at the same time.
Very minor. Yeah, I mean they did, but you can still throw together a triple XL ASB Vargur and still be 80% as effective as you were before. For what is it, 1.2, 1.3 billion or something like that right now?
Yeah.
Someone said earlier, I forgot what it was. I think it was Vane. Said like Amelia versus Shines. Talk about Ansiblexes. You know what I mean? It's not like I want to avoid this discussion. Ansiblexes are going to be a big topic until they get touched, right? This is not going to end. It's just like too influential. And just the thing that I want to say here is you'd be surprised how close everyone's opinions are, even though sometimes it doesn't seem like it. But for example, Shines and I talk about Ansiblex. Like, how many times have we talked about this? At first, it always seems like we have opposite opinions, but then we always get to a point where we're like, yeah, actually, I agree here, I agree there. So people would be surprised how close opinions usually are, while, they seem a little bit more distant. If you guys want to have that discussion, we can. But I think in general, this discussion is going to show up so many times. But the question I want to ask is, like Oz already said, he's gonna have a bit of a focus on like make sure CCP you don't go crazy on those sales, and like obviously he's gonna be a market guy, right? So what is a thing that you guys are gonna focus on? And then Amelia, if you want to start it, you can. If you say like Ansiblex are gonna be your number one thing, so yeah, like what do you think is an achievable thing that needs to be addressed right now?
I can start. Yeah, so I kind of had three main kind of pillars of my campaign that I really want to push for. And, as CSM, we don't dictate anything. We just try and provide input for CCP. So I think it's also important to note that, no matter what anyone here says, this is just what we're pushing for. And by no means does that mean that these things are going to be implemented. But basically the three things are, one is Ansiblex. I think that they are a net negative for the game because it allows groups to be much more centralized, which leads to these large floodplains. You can see them both in Horde space, in Goon space, even up in the north in Frat space and areas like that, where people live out of their staging system and are able to get anywhere within their 5 regions or so, which basically doesn't allow these kind of smaller and mid-sized groups to live there. And I think this leads to a total net negative because everyone, including the large block members, get less content because of it, because you have to go so much farther to find people that are not blue to you, basically. The second thing that I have is kind of touching off what we were just discussing, which is great, but basically the iteration of changes. I was really excited when the Talos team talked about being able to do like changes every 2 weeks, every month, and that slowed down really rapidly. And I'd love to understand and talk to CCP Rise and other people on that team about what's happening there and how do we get that back running again, because I think it was really important for the game to have these kind of micro changes that happen on a really frequent basis. And then the last thing that I really pushing for is kind of around the risk and reward in EVE. I think that the game has kind of become quite stale in that the way people, make ISK is whether it be like AFK Ishtar ratting or they're, doing abyssals or whatever it may be. It's generally either very safe or it doesn't add to the sandbox whatsoever. So I want more type of events or PvE methods that will lead to conflict, whether that be like the passive moon mining in the past or whether it be like the Poshfed Observatory Flashpoint sites. We need methods like these that are like can reward people and give them a lot of ISK so people want to go do them, but also make them limited in some way so that people will have to fight over them.
All right. Anyone want to jump into that discussion of any of
Sure.
them?
Well, I'll jump in as well. And then Dark Shines can fight us both, I guess.
I don't think he's gonna fight you all too much, but like, we'll see.
So kind of going off of what Amelia said, kind of the same thing, but my perspective has shifted a little bit more recently. Yes, Ansiblex are an issue for the reasons Amelia laid out. The only thing I will say is that I think fatigue may, and I'm putting emphasis on may be the best way to balance it. However, I don't think it should be the first change made to Ansiblexes. I don't think, in general, the null-sec system is really set up in a way to where that's going to be acceptable or feasible. Essentially, I want to try to avoid Blackout 2.0, where there's, no carrot and it's just a stick. And kind of going back to what Amelia said of passive income, I think passive income is definitely something that needs to happen potentially even before Ansiblex changes. Not obviously, it's going to highlight the issues of Ansiblex more because people can jump around to the systems that are profitable, but at the same time provides objectives in null-sec for people to fight over. Systems are no longer homogenized. Certain systems are actually valuable, which then means that these larger groups are going to be focusing on the systems that are profitable and not the systems that are, for lack of a better term, useless, at least for a larger scale. So they're more willing to drop these systems, which then will enable smaller groups to move into them. And once we start getting this dynamic to change and more people kind of moving in and things shifting, then we can kind of get a better idea on, okay, what do we actually need to do to Ansiblex? Do we still need to add fatigue? Do we need to add more tools? Which, one thing I think I've talked to you in the past, Pando, probably last year's CSM election, was ways to shut down Ansiblex, very quickly, such as like a hick script that you can just scram the gate and it shuts it off, which would then enable you to camp Ansiblexes effectively. Or you could have a whole new ship line to do that. Again, it doesn't matter about the details. But once we have more tools, we have more changes in null-sec, then we can really see how the dust settles and we can say, okay, do we need to add fatigue now that the system is more capable of handling it and there'll be less of a backlash?
All right. So, Hans, you want to say something from a null-sec alliance leader perspective? What do you think?
I think when it comes to Ansiblexes, that people approach them too much as if we fix this, it's going to fix everything. And I think the point that Amelia made there is really good, that being able to cross 4 or 5 regions from one area of space is not good. And I think probably most people would agree with that when they actually sit down and think about it. From an alliance point of view, Sov is shit. There is no real reason to hold Sov at the moment other than to build supers, and because it's what we've always done. I think there needs to be a distinction between, when you're talking about jump bridges, the ability to project over multiple regions versus the ability to upgrade and maintain your own region. So, for example, in Fountain, we have a jump bridge network. It's a big jump bridge network. Costs a lot of money. There's a lot of manpower to maintain, and it allows us to pass through Fountain, around Fountain, quite easily. But we pay for that privilege, and it's space that we own, that we fought for, that we have to defend, and that's how we upgrade it. And I think it would be nice to see alliances focused on holding their region and upgrading their region, like the way Ansiblexes are now, but while losing the ability to project over multiple regions. So I don't really know exactly what that would look like. Maybe limiting it to the alliance that dropped it. Maybe adding some sort of fatigue if you pass out of your own region or something, but without building fatigue within your own region. I think there can probably be a couple of things done, like sorry to name drop you, Bjorn, but you had mentioned like making the gate smaller so the fleets could be bubbled on a gate. I think that's a reasonable change. But I think adding fatigue or polarization or, those kind of changes within somebody's home region is not going to fix any of the issues people think it will, and it's just going to create issues for people who want to live in null-sec. So nerf power projection, but don't nerf null-sec, or at least your home region, any more than it already is. That's just in relation to jump bridges. For the rest of the stuff, I'm the Alliance Leader of Initiative. I run a null-sec alliance. My focus is very much on null-sec. I'm also an FC. I like the big fights. I like capitals. So I like battleships. Anything that will get a bunch of people fighting over things is good in my opinion. So that's what I would like to focus on.
I think you bring up a great point, if I can jump in real quick, Pando,
Sure.
about just like how it will not fix everything. And the reason that you touched on the most that resonates with me is that there's no reason to really own null-sec. I think there needs to be more carrots for people, like I was talking about before, where there's reasons that people can go out, that it's not just Ishtar ratting or whatever it may be, so that null-sec can be more lucrative to a lot of groups, especially these smaller and mid-scale groups, to push people to want to go take space, right? It's not just the fear of the big blocks by any means. It's both.
Should you not get ISK for holding systems? Concord should be happy that someone's cleaning up all these pirates, right? But shouldn't Concord pay you for that?
If you have something like that, though, it's going to encourage you to take as much space as you can, because that system basically already exists in a rental method, like in a rental setup, right? But if you look at Horde, look at how many regions PAMFAM hold, as an example, and how many of those regions are rented out. So that's basically ISK for systems, right?
It comes back to what you said earlier. It's never just that one change that can do it all, but like it would be one part of it. So if you couple that with for example, you get ISK for the systems you hold, but you also can't project with jump bridges further than your home region. You have to determine, okay, this is my home region, right? Let's say in its case it's Fountain. So now you can take Cloud Ring, you can take some, but that's close by. But you can't take something super far and have an easy time defending it. You can, if you're really organized and maybe you have a SIG that just defends Cloud Ring. But guess what? If we have a small SIG in Cloud Ring, or let's say in pick a region, right? The guys like Amelia and his dudes, they might look at this and say like, it's just a couple dudes, huh? So they might be interested in poking around, getting a fight there. And then the rest of the big alliance might not even be able to, come and help these guys, even though, it's their soft, that could be a healthy dynamic.
I'm so used to talking with you about these things that I forget nobody else has context to our actual conversations. So yeah, absolutely. Like anything to reduce empire sprawl is a good thing. I think. But on the flip side, I also think that smaller area of space you now hold is worth more, so that you can build up instead of out.
Yeah, you see, that's why I'm saying you get ISK for the systems you hold. Let's say we hold Fountain. How many systems is Fountain? 100 plus, right?
115.
It's a big region, right? So now there's an incentive to hold actually the big regions, not just like in Horde's case, for example, they're in the spot they are because it covers the most amount of systems. but they're different regions too, right? But,
Yep.
Which is another topic we could talk about for hours too. But now you have an incentive to say, okay, we're gonna go out and hold these systems that might not be contested all that much, and then we send like one corp over there, say like, this is your objective now. You gotta defend these timers there if there's something happening. And guess what? There's only one corp, right? And that's the way you generate the most of the alliance income. Then I think that could be, I always thought it's weird that you pay ISK to hold soft. I always thought that was kind of like,
You pay a lot of ISK to hold soft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, that should be the goal, is like trying to just spread it out. It just sucks how there's so much dead space in the game, and then you have systems like, whether it be 1DQ or MJ-TAC that have 300 people in it constantly. Like, if you could do what you're saying and, that SIG all of a sudden is staged at a Cloud Ring, it leaves more content for everyone, I think, including the larger blocks.
Yeah. But you see, opinions are closer than most people might make it out. Because if you ask, like, what do you think of jump bridges or Ansiblexes? If you get a short answer, it sounds so... there's no short answer to this, right? And usually people just know, for example, Shines says like, I don't want to see fatigue on Ansiblexes. And then someone like Amelia or Stitch would be like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the opinions are actually way closer than most people are thinking.
I came here to talk a bit about getting passive income for holding space, but it has been said very well by Stitch especially. So I think that in addition to tackling like the big issues of like fixing Eve and Ansiblexes and Sov and stuff, it might, at least I'm focusing a little bit more on some of the small things that seem easier to get people to be on board on, and also don't take that much in terms of dev time, at least according to like fixing the big systems, like having more constant ship rebalances, balancing the PvE income from like the bad sources, where like missions. Like, there are a lot of missions to do, but you don't make much money. If they were to rebalance some of the other aspects of money making in the game, people might spread out more because there's more to do.
I think the
corp management. So what?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to jump in. Just thinking of the mission stuff. I think the number one reasons for example, null-sec missions, it's more of an economic reason people don't do them, right?
Yeah, but like they've just fallen behind, and new sources of PvE that are added, like Potren, are also set to the new standard of what a payment should be. But they don't, like, as you might iterate on ships and like rebalance them as years go by, they have not done the same thing with some of the other methods of making ISK in the game, especially for like new players who come into the game. And the new player experience is very focused on like, you should do missions. They give you 50 missions to do as the first thing you do when you get into the game if you just follow the first things they tell you to do. And they pay out a total of 11.5 million for 50 missions. Like, that's not a lot. Along the list, there's court management roles and reworks. Like, they don't fit what players actually do in the game anymore. ACL hangers and like better key remapping in the game could also improve the player experience without being like a grand Eve changing event. Like, you can't remap the buttons for like OK in the pop-up menus, which means that if you like have a disability, you have only one arm or something, you can't actually get through those without like shifting your hand over. Like, they could add a little bit of remapping abilities there.
All right.
I agree with the mission stuff, by the way. The PvE they've added over the last years compared to missions that haven't been overhauled in such a long time is just so good. And I know people, some people love Abyssal, some people hate them because they're instant, PvE, and that's a whole different discussion. But I think everyone agrees that the the mechanics, the content is just very good, and it's just light years ahead of missions, and that's where I think
gank mission runners. You can't gank abyssal.
Exactly,
runners.
and I think it would be, if they could somehow, if they would focus on missions and elevate that content to what they've done to Abyssals, I think that would be so much better for the sandbox, because you would keep people in space. You would actually have, force fights, force destructions, and then they could also adjust the payment to it. The way that missions are right now, I am surprised anyone does missions at all in EVE Online, because missions are not what makes EVE Online special in any way, shape, or form. There are a million ways,
exactly
from station trading to large scale combat. All of that is awesome.
One of the things that makes EVE Online special is the fact that you don't go into a dungeon and hide from other people. Like having fleets of various sizes in complexes, because a lot of people are going to want to do PvE, whether the people who like to do exclusively PvP like it or not. But EVE lets you kill those people, unlike in most other games. And having them out in space doing stuff visibly is good for the PvPers.
I think
it makes it really... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chance.
No, you go for it, Amelia.
I was just saying, I think it makes it actually really hard to balance, though. Like, I agree, having this kind of competitive PvE, or more challenging PvE, is really important for the game, but I think it's really hard to balance within the sandbox as well. Because, like, if you're looking at like a T6 Abyssal or something like that, imagine a crow warps in on you, if it could, and it webs you or something. You might just die just from that in the site. So I think it's really hard to balance having really competitive PvE with still opening it up to the sandbox.
I'm just going to jump in and defend missions for a second. Missions can be very, very lucrative. Obviously, if you're in high sec and you're just running the blockade or whatever the missions were in high sec, I can't remember, it's been a long time ago, but you're not going to make very much ISK. But if you look at any of the NPC regions in the game, which, by the way, is why CCP should add more NPC space to all of EVE, the pirate mission. The pirate missions in null-sec can be, if you do them right, very, very lucrative because of the LP. So in Fountain, for example, you've got snake implants, which a lot of people like. In Delve, you've got amulets, which every super and low-sec and starting to get into null-sec pilot needs. So like, if you're farming amulets in Delve, it's very lucrative. In Stain, you've got Nirvanas. All right, so there's a lot of like mission running. It's old and it hasn't been revamped, but it's reliable and it can be lucrative if you do it right.
Yeah, but isn't one of the problem with missions, for example, in null-sec, that it isn't really worth it a lot of times, because, for example, the blueprints drop from NPCs too, and that kind of tanks the price a little bit, and then you could elevate the LP price by simply saying, okay, no, those Macarial, signable, Dramiel blueprints, they just don't drop anymore from faction spawns. Maybe not that often anymore, anyway. And or from like those, I think 7 or 10, 8 or 10, whatever. And then you up those prices, and then suddenly people would be more interested in living in NPC space, right? And then that's not where you can be reached by Ansiblexes too easily. I mean, you get still, one-time bridge away, but that isn't that one of the core things, like why it is the way it is.
I would like to see. I don't know if there is, or maybe someone here knows, like what the drop rates on BPCs are. I can't imagine, unless you were doing something that had very low demand, like something maybe in the Angel LP store, like the whatever those, I can't remember the name of them now, the ones that make you repair quicker. I don't think the drop rate would have much influence on the price, depending on the demand. Like, I don't think NPCs drop enough blueprints to really affect it. But I could be wrong on that. I don't know. That's just my impression.
I would think it has an impact. I don't know how much. I don't have these numbers.
I mean, the payout is one, but also making them a little bit more, I think, more engaging, more interesting is the other side of it, right? Because I mean, you can make if you start farming things, you go, people are doing burner missions. I mean, yes, they can be very lucrative, but then abyssals, they're not. They can also be very lucrative, but most people have a lot of fun doing them right out the gate because it's something. I can die. It's timed and everything. So I think if they put that sort of love into missions that really haven't been changed in a very, very long time, that's what I was getting at. But otherwise, totally agree. Dark Shines.
The one thing I've noticed, and obviously I'm quite biased on this because it's been our lifestyle for a while, is that most of like initiative. Panda, you'll know this. Like Panda was a mission runner down in Karst. He was like mission runner number 1 down in Karst.
I wouldn't say number 1 or
number 1 Panda
Oh.
when we lived in Karst, because missions were like you can sustain an alliance again depending on demand of products, but you can sustain an alliance or members level income on a single good mission hub.
It saved
like,
in it back then, yeah.
Correct, it did. And what I would say though is a lot of people, maybe this is something different in null-sec versus high-sec, but I know probably people who run missions in null-sec don't do it for the fun content or anything like that. It's the equivalent of running a Haven in an Ishtar. Not the payout equivalent, but the activity equivalent is that they just want something that's reliable, repeatable, and that they can get their ISK to go and do other things with.
Also, I think the content in null-sec missions is the PvP part, right? Because we ran missions, for example, right? And I've talked about this so many times on my normal streams. And it was staging in the same system as Darkside, and we were not that much bigger at the time as them. Then try to run missions in that area in null-sec while Darkside is in your fucking station trying to hunt your dudes. Like there was constant friction and stuff. There was always something happening, station camping and all that stuff, right? Yeah, that's another thing. We're not going to go into Citadels. Yeah.
So, I think what you're saying is right. Like seeing more content that is fun and engageable is good, but I also think there's an element of reliability as well.
And what I'm trying to say is like Oz is obviously right. I think we all agree. Reworking missions to get them to the same level, just visually experience, like just NPC experience wise or PvE experience wise, that would go a long way. And then obviously we took it further now and thinking, okay, in null-sec they're actually pretty good. It would take off quite a bit more, I think. And then if the payout was a little bit better, right? And then I think the goal should always be in Eve. In my opinion, anyway, the goal should always be to seek for the complexity in terms of PvP. The second is PvP involved to some degree. That's what makes it interesting. And you don't even have to create that content, right? It's just players making it interesting by default, trying to counter each other and catching each other and stuff like this. You don't have to come up with some script that's going to be outdated in a year or two. Like, no, these players will just do it for you, right? Like, leave the content creation more to the players. That has been my thing last year at least, and it's gonna stay that way anyway. Whenever I want to focus on one thing, it's like opportunities for content creation, right? That's the number one thing. That's what we need. Like, make it look cool, and people will go out and do it, and then leave the rest to the players, honestly. But yeah. I'm not sure where else I was going with this.
I get the reliability. Just maybe just one thing more to that. I get the reliability argument. I just think it's like it makes me a little bit sad when we always, as Eve players, we always, like, a lot of us always fall back to what we have to do, like this at least part of the time that is not fun. Like that is definitely not fun. Like it has to be the farming, the ISK making. Like I really try to not think that way when I think about EVE Online, because if you're plexing your account, but if you're already paying for your subscription, there's no reason why not 90% of your playtime should be fun, right? And I personally won't accept that I have to run shitty missions, and I'm exaggerating here, Shines, right? I have to run shitty missions to then go out in PvP. Now, I'm lucky to be insanely rich in this game, but I claim, like, I have stopped doing the Like, I don't do the market trading where you update 300 orders a day. I don't, right? I nowadays I do swing trading. I do large, market trading activities. If it's not fun, I don't do it. And I know that I'm not representative, but I don't think any player should necessarily accept that.
Yeah.
Not if they're paying for the subscription.
That's the same way. That's the same way I ran missions back then. Shine said I was like the biggest mission runner, but actually, I just did the minimum to get good blitz missions, and then I just did those blitz missions twice a week or so for like 20-30 minutes. And I paid for everything back then. You could do that. And I paid for like 3 accounts, easy. And I lost a ton of ships all the time. I think everyone has seen my code. Like, people talk about killboards and stuff, and then sometimes they're like, "Oh, you're in the top whatever 20 or whatever it is of all kills and stuff." But I'm like, but I'm also in the top 10 of all losses, and I'm actually more proud of that, honestly, right? Like, if the ability to say like, okay, I'm gonna lose a ship, so be it. I think it's more healthy for the game.
I need to clean up with one thing in chat real quick. Like, I know people always say, yeah, but Oz, but he doesn't undock, right? I've been playing this game since 2004, right? When I do the role that I play in the EVE universe now is very much the market tycoon. I don't undock, haha, it's funny. I say it 15 times a day, right? I've been playing this game for a very long time. I've done a lot of different things, right? I've been evicted from wormholes. I've been in undercover in null alliances. I've done a lot of stuff in EVE Online, right? Just because I don't do that now doesn't mean that I can't also talk about other things. I might not be an expert in these things, but I certainly can, run missions, or I've run, many missions in my time with Online, and say, I think they should be iterated upon, because I know there are other things that are more engaging in the game. So, just feel like I have to clean up with that prejudice there.
At the same time, I mean, we're talking about CSM stuff here, right? There's going to be, if you get elected, there's going to be 11 other people on the CSM. I'm sure someone knows something, and that's another. Like, I kind of wanted to like talk to you about, like, what do you think? What are the qualities you lead to be an effective CSM? I think one underrated quality is maybe to not talk at times. At times, you just gotta lean back and let the guys who actually know their shit, like when it's industry stuff like that. I'm not gonna say a word. Like, there have been meetings, and I'm not ashamed of saying it. There have been meetings I didn't say a single word beside like, "Hey, what's up? How's it going?" And that's how it should be, right? If there's 10 people in a room, like, you can't have like it's too much anyway, in my opinion, to have to go anywhere in a discussion. Like, usually it's not discussions necessarily. But yeah, if you have a Kenneth and an angry, super solid when it comes to these kind of things, right? Like, why would I be talking, right? So yeah, I think you don't have to know everything. You don't have to know like every bit of it. Like, if you are really good at one aspect, yeah, that's why we have so many candidates anyway. So
I think for me, the top 3 would be, you have to be willing to learn. So, you can't go in there thinking you know everything. You have to be willing to learn from other players on the CSM and the player base as a whole. 2, you got to compromise. You can't go in there, this is my opinion, I'm going to push it through. No way. You're going to have to discuss it. And 3, very important, you got to have a positive attitude. Because I mean, it's very easy to go in there and always say, I hate this about the game. I hate that. I want to change this. I want to change that. In the end, you have to be there because you love the game. Because there's no way you're going to spend that much effort and that much time thinking about something that you don't love and you want to save or make better or improve. So I think those 3 things, if you don't bring those, then you have no business on the CSM.
What about the other guys? Amelia, what do you think? What are the important qualities for the CSM? Oh no, we lost him. He's gone. All right.
I guess I'll pick up there. Pretty much agree with everything that Oz said. I would say probably one other additional thing is to think outside the box. I think a lot of people get tunnel visioned into, this is, what they're passionate about or what they have experience in. And there's a lot of conversation that happens, especially in, within the community, where people kind of latch on to this one thing is going to fix everything. And sometimes you need to step back away from the rabble on what everyone expects is going to be the best change, and kind of look at it as a big picture. And so then you can make a more informed decision on where you need to go. And not to toot my own horn, but obviously I have history with CCP in terms of like making my posts and them going along with those, and a lot of those things are typically things that were done outside the box, or focusing on making things easy, which is, I guess, another thing maybe I can bring up is a lot of changes don't need to be completely world changing. Keeping it within the confines of how CCP normally does things, at least historically, if you look back far enough, you can kind of see a pattern of how CCP tweaks things. And a lot of it is just, fairly simple stuff. They can either change numbers in the database, add a roll bonus, whatever the case may be. These are all things that they can do quickly, instead of being like, I want to rework this thing to where you need, a bunch of devs working on it and engineering changes. And, that's just not realistic. They're not going to do that.
Yeah. All right. Amelia is lagging out. It seems like his internet connection is gone. He sent me a message. Let's see if we can get him back. But yeah, just so people know. Like,
It's good now. Sorry.
oh, there you go. We were talking about what we think like good qualities that you should have on the CSM. What do you think is like the most useful, like, in general?
Yeah, I think it's about basically trying to be able to have a strong community as an individual. So being able to like reach out about ideas that, you are smart about, and be able to stay quiet on issues that you're not knowledgeable about, or you don't have a community that is knowledgeable about. I think I've seen a lot of people that on the CSM that try and dip their toes in everything, when realistically they probably don't have the experience or the community to be able to support that in a cohesive manner. And then I think the second thing is being able to create relationships and being able to communicate your ideas really properly with CSM. I think CSM can sometimes be somewhat overrated if you don't have the actual relationships with the CCP, because you're not going to get anything done unless you can have those relationships with them and be able to communicate properly with them about what those ideas actually are.
Yeah, and I want to jump in there for just for a second. And I think the CSM Summit really pops it up. Like, it's about trust, right? CCP needs to know, okay, who we talking to anyway, right? And building that trust over time, over like a chat, sure, give it enough time, you'll get there. But like, just the summit, just to be there in person and them seeing, okay, these are reasonable guys, we can talk to these guys, they're not gonna lose their minds, like they're gonna give us their take and stuff. Just to build that like on the summit, it just it multiplies that progress super quickly. And I'm just so glad that we have the summit back, right, after the break that was COVID. Yeah, I think trust is super important. Who else? Who has a take? Dujek, you look like you're ready to go.
I was actually thinking that a lot of this was covered already. I think also maybe the last part that could be highlighted again is like, know your role in a certain way. Like, it's not so much game designer as subject matter expert on like a user base. Like, you use the product and you know what you like.
Basically, that's what I always say, is like enabling CCP to make the right decision rather than telling them this is the right decision.
Yeah.
Shines, you got anything to add?
I think a lot of good points have been made. So I would probably rehash a lot of them. I think the important thing as the CSM, keep in mind I've never been on the CSN, so I'm only guessing, is that you're there to represent players. You're there to represent what should be good for the game, and hopefully you're able to build a relationship with CCP to the point that you're able to effectively influence changes for the good, for the betterment of EVE, for both CCP and the players.
Yeah. Basically, not losing focus on the goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I think. And yeah, I think. Wait, also you already answered that question. I think, guys, we're close to an hour and a half. I would say we covered a lot of things. Is there anything you guys want to bring up? That you think is important for people to know, or like an important issue, maybe. I mean, if you have something on your mind that you really want to talk about. Nobody.
I think it's been interesting to hear the different takes on everything. And one thing that was like, I could see in Twitch chat, everybody was expecting me to come out and say,
I know.
Jump bridges are great, fucking buff jump bridges. So I was going to joke at the start and say that, you should get access to everyone's jump bridges so we could do a
10
full
light
lap
years.
of null-sec.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it would be cool if people could maybe hold in the prejudice for a little bit and actually see what people have to say.
Yeah, I knew
Because,
that's. Sorry.
No, just because I'm from NPC, from Sovnol and Amelia, does his thing, doesn't mean that and not just us, obviously, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that the players are necessarily super different.
Yeah, there have been characters that have been very outspoken and polarizing in that regard. When it comes to Ansiblex especially, they made this such a big topic, I don't want to name any names. And, on both sides, fans of Ansiblexes and opponents, right? And I think that didn't help. So everyone instantly, when a topic comes up, they instantly put everyone in a box. And that's why I kept, this way I prepared everyone for, guys, you're going to be shocked a little bit. Chance is fairly reasonable when it comes to that. He might have a different take than Amelia, obviously. Way different personalities and stuff. But in general, everyone kind of agrees with the problems it generates. Just what do we do about it, right? So yeah, and it's
Right.
always.
I think it's kind of similar to the Marauder predicament that we talked about before, where you talk about changes to Marauders and immediately people assume you want to nerf them back into non-existence. Yeah. And it's the same thing when we talk about Ansiblex. Is I think there's been the whole fatigue discussion gets put up on the podium as the only way, because it's kind of highlighted by certain people as this is the only thing that they want to talk about, when there's a lot of in between fatigue and where they currently sit. And having those discussions between us from varying perspectives is good to show, hey, look, we're not just wanting to ram this one change down your throat. We want to discuss it and try and find a reasonable compromise, something that works for everyone.
Yeah, I think it was nice to see the reasonable approach from everyone here, and fairly different set of experiences here. I hope the next term on the CSM is going to be similar to what we had today, in terms of sitting down, talk about stuff, and everyone kind of is willing to compromise here and there, and yeah, I hope we all get elected, honestly, right? And I hope everyone in chat got a good insight of all the characters here, and yeah, put these guys on the ballot, right? I mean, obviously put me on the top, right? Just saying. But yeah, guys, that would be super awesome to see you guys all on the CSM. That would be super. I think we can get some good stuff done just with the 6 of us.
Yeah,
and then we get 6 more good candidates. I think that should actually give some optimism back to people. All right.
Here's
then,
getting a beer together in Iceland.
Are you gonna be there?
No, I'm just saying when we're all on CSM.
Oh, all right. I was just instantly thinking of FanFest. I was like, yeah, FanFest coming up.
I'll be there.
I'll be there
Me
too.
too.
Nice.
Yeah,
Shines is gonna be there. Stitch, what about you?
Unfortunately, not this one.
Oh. Alrighty. But guys, I want to thank you for coming on. Good stuff. Like I said, hope we all get on. And See you guys.
Yeah, thanks for
All
having
right?
me.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And you guys on
Bye,
stream,
Panda.
thanks for
Bye,
hanging
everyone.
out. And see you guys tomorrow, probably. All right? Have a good one. Bye-bye.